Thanks for tuning in with us tonight. This is Tom Hill-Gardner with Alex Hurd, The Conscious Father. How you doing tonight, Alex?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to be talking about tonight, and we're going to be talking about competition, right? And it's a really broad subject, and it's something larger that can be covered in the 15 minutes that we're going to share tonight. But when we talk about competition, like what I think about is academic competition, athletic competition, social competition. And what we're going to be discussing tonight is sibling competition and how it relates to our children. And, what I've realized, my daughters, Rowan is 7 and Amron is 5 now. And so by nature, there's competition within our household, and competition on its face is great. I mean, it's a really important thing. It challenges us. It forces us outside of our comfort zone. It makes us appreciate hard work. It's a wonderful thing, but it's also the way in which we foster the idea of competition and the belief of competition in our children that can make it a burdensome, heavy thing or a challenging, empowering thing. And we're dealing a lot right now with the idea of sibling competition, and the way I see it manifesting recently is my 2 daughters are 2 completely different people in the way in which they handle situations and the way in which they handle their day-to-day lives, even at 7 and 5. Rowan is a little bit more uptight and takes things much more personally, and her reactions are out of a place of sensitivity and drama. And Amron is kind of more just freewheeling, and she just goes with the flow, and she just she embraces everybody, loves everybody, and just can roll with it. And what we found ourselves doing sometimes, and it was when Rowan is one of those like whining moods or a difficult space, we'll actually say, "Oh, your sister's not whining. Amron's eating her chicken. Amron's having fun. Why can't you have fun? We're having fun as a family. You're the only one who's not having fun." And so all of a sudden, we have created, and poor Amron, she's done nothing but just kind of be herself. And all of a sudden, probably this resentment in Rowan is growing where she's going to knock Amron out one day because we are unwittingly pitting them against each other. And Rowan is feeling this level of not being able to keep up with the Joneses, which is her little 5-year-old sister, because her parents are saying, "Well, you're not like Amron." And that's insane. And that's what I'm talking about, that sibling rivalry, that sibling competition, where I feel as though Jen and I, and I'll speak for myself, I'm fostering the negative side of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good on you to be aware of it and to be able to, talk about it, bring it to the table. I think that's one of the first things we need to do within ourselves is to notice it, and then to be able to have a space where we can talk about it. When I hear you speak about competition, it draws within me this part of, like, I think competition on one level is amazing. I think that it can totally bring out the best in us. It can help our self-growth, and it can help us to, encounter, a lot of times our children, we're going to speak to a different episode about our kids constantly saying, I can't do that. Right? And competition can be one of those tools that helps kids to grow their confidence and to see just how much they can achieve in the face of doubt or in the face of insecurity. But I also think that competition can be the double-edged sword, where it can also build separation. It can create a decisiveness or a lack of unity, where it becomes, instead of we, it becomes me. It's like, I got to get mine. I've got to make sure I stand out. My kids are still pretty young at 2 and 6 months. There's not a whole lot of visual competition going on. Occasionally, Andre, my 2-year-old, is shown a little bit of, like, and it's kind of our assumption whenever he maybe has some tantrums that maybe he's feeling like, hey, the light's not on me as much as it used to before she came into the world, like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But they're really not quite at the age. But looking at it as a conscious father, I look at it as my growing up experience, having a sister that was 16 months younger than myself. And, we went through the pretty typical sibling experience where, it was, we were best of friends at school. But when we got home, it was like boxing gloves and knives and grenades came out. It was just like, let's get this on. And as I've become a grown adult and a father myself, I've done a lot of work personally with just apologizing to myself and apologizing to my sister on some of the things that I did as a kid, not realizing the impact that it may have had on her. But I want to actually ask your thought on this. One of the thoughts that came to me was the competition at school within, like, there's a popular group, and then there's the dorky group or the unpopular group or then you've got these different cliques. And this is true not only in grade schools, but this is true in the work world where adults are, right? And the reality is that our kids are probably going to fall into different groups.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, that's one of the 4 topics that we were talking about was the idea of social competition. And as a young kid, I'm sure you can remember, I remember kids that it paved the way for their entire school experience through elementary school and through high school. And a lot of people were fortunate enough, if they chose to go on to college or whatever they chose to do after high school, they were able to kind of start fresh, start new. And some people weren't, right? But the idea of social competition, I think that all starts in the house. And when we're talking about trying to impart a sense of independence and a sense of confidence and a sense of you can be inclusive of all groups. And like, that's something we teach our girls, is that when they have play dates or when we're in a group of people, always be inclusive. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be more friendly with someone, that you have to be equally friendly with everybody.
Yep.
But it does mean that you have to be sensitive to the fact that there's other people around and perhaps other people that aren't like you. And that will go a long way from my girls being identified by that one clique, and they can be embracive of other groups.
Yeah. When my kids come home from school, when they are of that age, I think my intention, and we'll see what actually happens at that time, because, we have I remember before my kids came into the world, I had the intention of giving them organic juice from, the most amazing stuff every single day. And now it's, I try, it's like we try to live up to the optimal, ideal vision of our life for ourselves and for our kids, but we're on our journey, right? But, one of the things that I think I will really try to put an emphasis on is helping my kids to realize what their skills are, what they're good at, and that it's okay that it's different from their brother or their sister. And not only helping them to acknowledge what their skill is and to really build a sense of confidence in that skill, but to also have an appreciation for their sibling's skill and to know that maybe that's not a skill that they're as strong in, and that's okay. Because when they go to school, it can become really narrow-minded, where it's cool to be in this group and it's not cool to be in this group, right? So, but when my kids come home, I want them to be, and I certainly hope that, that the school that we choose is, hopefully doesn't have that as much, but, kids are kids.
Yeah.
It's this idea of really helping my children to ask for support, to learn how to ask for support, not to build a belief that, oh, that's not my skill, I'm not good at it. No, that's not what I'm speaking to, but to know that when someone else has a skill that they can acknowledge, that to really acknowledge it and to maybe even compliment the other child from my kids. Say, hey, I notice you're really good at, like, to teach my kids to not be in competition of, well, I've got to shine and I've got to show the best. No, actually, why don't you go acknowledge that child by saying, hey, you're really good at throwing that baseball. rather than creating a mindset within their mind of, I'm not as good as them, or on the flip side, of course, I'm better than them. Wait till I throw that ball or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, so that is a much more healthy, empowering way of doing it. I mean, that's like just while you were speaking, I was thinking about how I started the conversation and how, when our daughters when Rowan or Amron are acting a certain way, and we would like them to act more like the other kid, that in itself breeds resentment towards each other, because what you're saying is, I am preferring one to the other in that moment, because that's what they're hearing. At 7 and 5, what they're hearing is, I prefer this to what you're doing. And when a child hears, I prefer something else, then I prefer you, than you, that's a pretty heavy weight to be carrying around. And so that should never leave my lips. I get it. I mean, we're going to be frustrated and we're going to say things that we don't mean to in the heat of it, but we shouldn't, ideally. And so that was helpful. Like that, what you just said was helpful.
Kids, but thanks for bringing that to the table, because, part of the show, we're going to be talking about things where literally within our conversation, we're going to be going, oh, yeah, I kind of been doing that crappy. I mean, not to put a judgmental on ourselves.
No, but it's okay, man. It's okay to say that from time to time, because sometimes you do stuff crappy.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, in future shows, we're going to talk, we're going to lean more in about things like the academic competition, athletic, the academic and the athletic, and as well as more social competition. Yeah. But I think we really hit a pretty good points to the conversation tonight, just around sibling rivalry and competition, how we can, as mindful, conscious parents, try our best to create more unity and love within the sibling relationship.
Yeah, brother, that's all we're trying to do.
All right, man.
All right, man.
All right, Alex. Thanks, everybody, for joining in, and we'll see you next time.
Take it easy, brother.